Ryan Mitchell, successful, sharp, and far too busy for romance, was the kind of man who thought emotions were a distraction. His life revolved around board meetings, deadlines, and the cold glow of his laptop screen. But when his best friend insisted on setting him up for just one dinner, he reluctantly agreed. He expected someone flashy, someone like the women he met at corporate events, elegant, ambitious, and interested in his last name more than his soul. But the moment he saw her sitting in that small cafe, nervously stirring her coffee in a chipped mug, everything changed. She wasn't what he expected. Her name was Emma Clark. She worked at that very cafe as a waitress, her uniform slightly wrinkled, her hair tied in a loose bun, and her smile, shy but genuine. There was something raw and unpolished about her, something real. Ryan almost turned back, thinking it must be a mistake. But when she looked up and their eyes met, something in him softened. "Hi, you must be Ryan," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry if this is awkward. I don't usually do this kind of thing." He smiled faintly. "Neither do I." They laughed, awkwardly at first, but within minutes, the tension melted away. They talked about simple things, movies, music, and dreams. He found himself laughing more than he had in months. But behind her bright smile, Ryan sensed a quiet sadness, a weight she carried silently. When he asked her about her family, she hesitated. "It's just me," she said softly. "My mom passed away when I was young. Dad left. I've been on my own since I was 17. Ryan's chest tightened. There was no self-pity in her voice, only strength. As the evening ended, Emma reached for her bag, and that's when it happened. A folder slipped from her hands and scattered across the floor, papers fluttering everywhere. She gasped, kneeling quickly to gather them, but one sheet slid under Ryan's chair. He picked it up, and froze. At the top of the page was his own name. Ryan Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Enterprises. And below that, project proposal, the Children's Shelter Renovation Fund. His mind spun as he scanned the paper. It was a detailed plan for rebuilding a rundown orphanage on the outskirts of the city, one his company had recently declined to sponsor. He looked at her, stunned. "You wrote this?" Her face turned pale. Yes. I didn't mean for you to see that. It's just something I've been working on after my shifts. The shelter raised me when I was little. It's falling apart, and the kids deserve better. I tried to send this proposal to your company months ago, but," she trailed off, embarrassed. Ryan remembered that file. His assistant had dismissed it as low-impact charity. He'd never even read it. Now, looking into her tearful eyes, he felt a wave of guilt and shame. That night, as he drove home, Emma's words echoed in his head. The kids deserve better. Over the next few weeks, Ryan couldn't stop thinking about her. He walked into the cafe expecting another waste of time. Ryan Carter, 32, CEO of one of the biggest construction companies in the city, wasn't the kind of man who believed in blind dates. He lived for results, not surprises. His assistant had practically begged him to go, insisting he needed a human connection. He expected an elegant, businesslike woman, someone polished, confident, and probably more interested in his bank account than his heart. But instead, he saw her. A young woman in a faded waitress uniform, nervously fixing her ponytail behind the counter. When she noticed him, she smiled shyly and waved him over to a small corner table. "Hi, you must be Ryan," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm Emma." He blinked in surprise. "You work here?" She laughed softly, cheeks turning pink. "Yes. I hope that's not a problem." For a moment, Ryan didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to people who didn't try to impress him. But there was something pure in her simplicity, something that made him stay. As they talked, he found himself drawn to her warmth. She didn't talk about money or luxury, she talked about her dreams. About wanting to open a children's learning center one day. About helping others. "Why a learning center?" he asked. She smiled sadly. "Because I never got to finish school. Life happened too fast." That sentence stuck with him. When the date ended, Emma reached for her bag, and a folder slipped out, scattering papers across the floor. She gasped, kneeling quickly to pick them up. One page slid near Ryan's shoe. he picked it up and froze. It was a project proposal. Across the top was his own company's logo. "Wait," he said, scanning it. "This is one of my company's projects. The new orphanage renovation." Emma's eyes widened in panic. "You weren't supposed to see that." He frowned. "You wrote this?" She hesitated before nodding. "Yes. I tried to submit it to your company through email a few months ago, but I never got a response. I thought if I met someone who worked there, maybe they could help me get it seen." Ryan's chest tightened. He remembered the proposal being rejected by his team without review. They said it wasn't financially valuable. He looked at her again, seeing the determination behind her humble appearance. "You really care about this project, don't you?" Her eyes filled with emotion. "That orphanage, it's where I grew up. It's falling apart. The roof leaks when it rains, and the kids sleep on the floor. I just wanted to make it better." Ryan couldn't speak for a moment. Something in him shifted that night. The next morning, he asked his secretary to pull up Emma's proposal. It was detailed, heartfelt, and practical. She'd thought of everything: cost breakdowns, sustainability plans, even volunteer programs. He realized his company had overlooked something truly meaningful. That same day, he called Emma. "I want to meet you again," he said. "But this time, let's talk." He was used to perfection, until he met someone who showed him what real beauty looked like. Ryan Matthews, a 33-year-old business consultant, was the kind of man who planned everything. His suits were tailored, his shoes spotless, and his life, in his opinion, perfectly under control. He didn't believe in luck, fate, or love. To him, emotions were distractions, until one night, when his sister tricked him into going on a blind date. He expected a polished woman from his world, confident, well-educated, someone who talked about investments and fine wines. Instead, the moment he walked into the small cafe, he found a young woman in a worn-out uniform, nervously holding two menus. Her name was Emma Lane. She wasn't glamorous. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, her hands were calloused from work, and her smile, it was uncertain but genuine. Ryan almost turned back, assuming there'd been a mistake. But she looked up, eyes filled with quiet hope, and said softly, "You're Ryan, right? Please, sit down. I'm sorry if this isn't what you expected." He hesitated, then smiled. "No, it's fine." They sat, and what began awkwardly soon turned into one of the most honest conversations Ryan had ever had. She didn't try to impress him. She talked about real things: how hard it was to pay rent, how she dreamed of finishing her studies, and how she spent her days serving others who barely noticed her. There was no pretension in her tone, only strength, wrapped in humility. He asked why she agreed to a blind date at all. She smiled faintly. "Because my friend said maybe it's time I stopped surviving and tried living again." Something in that answer stayed with him. When their meal ended, Emma reached for her bag. In her rush, she dropped a folder onto the floor. Papers spilled everywhere. She gasped and knelt down, frantically gathering them. Ryan bent to help, but when he picked up one page, his eyes widened. It was an official document, with his company's logo on it. He froze. "This is from Matthews Holdings," he said quietly. "Why do you have this?" Emma's hands shook. "You weren't supposed to see that." He looked at her more closely. "Did you steal it?" Her voice broke. "No. Please, it's not what it looks like." He stood up, angry and confused. "Then what is it?" She bit her lip, tears forming. "I wrote that proposal. I submitted it to your company months ago, but I never got a reply. I tried every way I could to reach someone, but no one listened. The project means everything to me. I wasn't trying to trick you, I just wanted a chance." Ryan slowly sat back down. "You wrote this?" "The Hope Haven Children's Center proposal." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes. I grew up there. It's an orphanage, but now it's falling apart. The roof leaks, and the children sleep on old mattresses. I wanted to renovate it, to give them a real home. I studied social work before I had to drop out, but I used what I learned to design the plan. I just never got the